Hello, DMV. It is Kevin Grolig here on a Tuesday night, and we've got a great show for you guys. Hopefully, you're enjoying some of the good weather we've had here over the last few days. A little bit of rain, we need it, but overall good weather, and looks like some nice spring weather here to come here in the future. But tonight, I've got a great guest with me here. This guy he's actually known on Instagram as the foodie realtor. And I'm going to ask him about that because I know why he's called that. This guy knows about food and he knows the best places in town. So I'm going to ask him a little bit about that and kind of, jump off the subject at hand a little bit. But tonight, what we're going to talk about is a lot of the goings on with the CEO wars, the portal wars that are going on within the real estate business. You've got all the big names that are coming up. You've got Zillow, you've got Redfin, you've got EXP, and you've got Compass. And some of them are aligning together and others are not. And so what I thought was that I would bring in my special guest, Jon Lahey. He is a mega agent, real estate coach, author of the Lahey Fine Living group with EXP. And so I figured we'd kind of take opposite ends of the spectrum here a little bit, see where we agree, see where we disagree on this subject here. So with all that being said, let's bring in Jon Lahey.
Hey, Kevin. What's going on, man?
How's it going?
It's always good to see you.
You know what? It's good to be seen. It's good to be seen. And, so, hey, I had to bring up the foodie realtor. Tell me a little bit about how you became foodie realtor. I mean, actually, I got to be honest with you, dude. You're like, you might rename your channel Skinny Realtor because I think you've shed some LBs here lately. Am I wrong about that?
I've actually lost upwards of like 30 pounds since the last few years. Yeah, I decided to take a different journey, and I'm still a foodie. I still love to eat, and I'm just more mindful about what I put into my body, and I spend more time at the gym.
Awesome.
So thank you for noticing that. Appreciate that.
I did. It's not, most guys aren't going to come up and say like, hey, Jon, like you're looking hot. I mean, but I've been noticing, I noticed from a distance and everything. So, and I know that, whenever we, as we age, it gets harder and harder to do that and to keep pounds off, but it is very important. And so, I'm glad to hear that you're kind of starting a new journey there and taking that seriously, your health serious. But you got to tell me, because I remember when I was hanging out with you back in the days, like circa 2018, 2019, you knew all the good places to go. So tell me about your it place today in Montgomery County.
Oh, man, my it place. It really depends on my mood. It's But I got the name Foodie Realtor back in the day because, early on the Instagram days, a lot of the handles were still available. And so I'm like, all right, what do I like to do? Because I don't want to just be a realtor. Everybody's a realtor. And so I figured, you know what? I'm a foodie. I identified at the time as a foodie, and I love just eating and hanging out with people. And I also realized all my clients at the time, whenever they're moving to an area, whether it's like Kentlands or Fairfax or Rockville, they're always asking me like, hey, where should we go? Like, where's the place to go? Where do I go to eat? And of course, I do know where all the places to hang out and all the places to eat in the area. And that's how I became the foodie realtor. Is I was the realtor who knows where to eat. Whenever my clients move into a new area, they're like, where do I go? I'm like, well, what are you in the mood for? And I know where, not all the restaurants, but at least my favorite restaurants, I know where to suggest them to go.
Yeah. So I ran into you probably about 6 months ago. It was a place along Rockville Pike. And I mean, the place was packed. I remember it was a Sunday evening. I was actually with my daughter. I'd just come back from the Commanders game. We actually won. I think that we beat the Eagles.
Yep.
And I was freezing cold. I had about 14 layers on, but they had like robots in there that were like serving food and everything. And I mean, they had everything from like, the Korean barbecue with the hibachis right there at the table, but then they had sushi. That place was pretty awesome. I don't remember the name of it, but Kanpai. You were there that evening.
Yes, I was. Kanpai, right off Rockville Pike. It's a Southeast Asian barbecue. They have Thai food and they have Korean barbecue, and it's really good.
Yeah. Okay, but just give me one place. Like, what's the last place you went where you're like, wow, that place is really good?
One of my kind of go-to places is East Dumpling House, Rockville, right in Rockville, East Dumpling House. It's also karaoke. So if you like to sing, and you go midweek, you and I should go actually. If you go midweek, they'll give you the karaoke room. I don't want to say it's included, but with the amount of spend that you would with eating, and if you drink, then it covers the minimum for the room.
Well,
if you go midweek.
There is no karaoke if there is no drinking. So
Exactly.
The two go kind of hand in hand there.
Yep. Exactly.
But,
exactly.
Anyway, so hey, Jon, I first of all, I appreciate you being on, and I value your expertise in the real estate business. And recently we've had some of these articles come out, kind of like this one we got here. Let's see if we can pull that up. Give me just a second. Well, while we're pulling it up, there we are. So this came out like mid-April, which, gosh, mid-April seems like months ago at this point, the way things are flying by. But it's basically talking about Zillow to bar publicly marketed listings not shared via MLS. And the interesting thing was it says the move endorsed by EXP could affect listings that are promoted via social media, yard signs, and other means allowed by NAR's delayed marketing policy. And some of the key points I'm reading here says Zillow's new standards for listings align with clear cooperation rules, but potentially conflict with NAR's delayed marketing policy. EXP is a launch partner for Zillow's new move, a commitment that is about delivering value and building trust. EXP Realty CEO Leo, is it Pareja? Is that how it's pronounced?
Yes.
Pareja said.
Parejo.
Okay. And the new standards, which take effect in May, also apply to Trulia, which is owned by the Zillow group. And so, this right here completely goes not against, but Compass, the broker that I work for, is coming from completely the opposite side of the clear cooperation policy. And of course, these new moves with Zillow, because I think that with Compass, they have been kind of I wouldn't say a pioneer in private exclusive listings, because pocket listings, secret listings, private exclusive listings have been around forever. However, I think Compass is the one that's kind of been on the forefront of really more popularizing this and bringing it to the market today, which has kind of been seen as a disruptor out there. So, what are your thoughts right now when it comes to, I guess, private listings versus, the Zillow policy, where EXP stands? What are your thoughts on all this?
You and I talked briefly about this, and, where my stance is, I'm just here to look out for my clients. So whatever my seller needs, whatever they want, if we can get that for them, that's really where my stance is. In some cases, in some scenarios, you and I will encounter a seller, a homeowner who says, "Hey, Kevin, we actually want a private listing. We don't want the neighbors to know we're on the market. We don't want anybody to know that we're moving. This is like, if you have an investor, if you have somebody exclusive who can just buy it, we rather go that route." And I still believe in that scenario, we can still do that. Especially if that is the scenario, then you don't have to go on Zillow if you have the buyer already. In the other side of the spectrum, I also believe that if that is not what their goal is, because we always ask the sellers, right? "Hey, Mr. and Mrs. Homeowner, what is your goal? What, like, at the end of the day, when we're done with the sale of your home and you're happy, you're ecstatic with the sale of your home, what has to happen for you to feel happy? And is it top dollar for your home? Is it home sold as fast as possible? Is it no hassle-free? Is it something else?" So when they say, "You know what, we just want to sell the home as fast as possible. We don't care who the buyer is. We don't care about the money. We don't care about anything else," then we take a different approach. And in scenarios where the seller's like, "You know what, we want top dollar for our home, and we want to get as many people in here as possible," then we take a different approach. So we always go through the actual question and answer with the seller to make sure we know exactly how to approach, because you and I know you've been in the market, you've been a realtor for longer than me. This is my 20th year.
65 years.
Between the two of us, we're like 100 years in the market together. But you gotta know, like, not every home is different. Every seller scenario and situation is different. and market's different. And in markets where it's really hot, I hate to say it, but when the market's really hot, you may not need to be on the MLS. You will have people knocking on your door ready to buy. You will have people in your market exclusives who's ready to buy. You will be able to make those connections. But I also see the value in the other side of the spectrum, which is, if the market slows down and we need to expose the property to more buyers and more eyeballs, MLS and Zillow and Trulia and Redfin, they do bring that value in additional in a way where it is a tool where we can actually use and a platform for us to get more extra exposure to additional buyers on top of what you and I can do marketing, just from our own database and from our own brokerage, right? So I see the value in both on both sides. So it really depends. The short answer is it really depends on what the client need and what the client wants, and that's our job. Get them what they want.
And I 100% agree. I mean, I think we know that this is not a one size fits all. And really, what's interesting is, people, they think that what we do is we sell houses. Well, there's not a house out there that's ever called me up or you up to say, hey, Kevin, come list me. Like the houses don't do that. It's a person, and it's a situation there. And each situation and each person comes with different set of goals, objectives, timelines, and everything. And to your point, I mean, our job is to really understand them and what they're looking for, because, it's interesting, most home sellers, a lot of them that I talk to, or just general public, it's like, oh, you want to sell every house for the most that you possibly can. And, when a seller hires me, yes, that is the goal. However, speaking, one of the questions that I ask is, what's more important? Is getting the highest price the most important thing? Or is it, timing, and hassle-free? Like, what's more important? Is it the price or is it the timing? A lot of times they say a little bit of both, but ultimately, like, if it's timing and it's hassle-free, I mean, you might take a completely different approach than if it's, we need the most amount of money possible,
Exactly. We're on the same page on that.
Yeah. I think where the real differing comes in is that, with, Robert Refkin, which is the CEO of Compass, I mean, he's been fighting the clear cooperation policy. The clear cooperation policy was, I guess, adopted in 2019. And then in 2020, it was implemented. And it really was to stop. I mean, they didn't really come out and say it, but it was a big push against Compass, who was growing at the time and also really promoting their coming soons, where it would only be on the Compass portal versus going into the MLS. We were also reaching a market just before the pandemic, where the market was already heating up even before the pandemic. Take the pandemic, it was like putting gasoline on a fire. I mean, who would have known at the time? I thought the market was going to completely crash, but it shows how much, my 65 years of real estate experience teaches me. But really where the differing is that, it's interesting because, Zillow and Redfin and EXP have come out and said, well, this is really about, if the property is going to be made available to one buyer, it should be made available to all buyers. And so it's, they're kind of framing it as a pitch for a consumer, this is for consumer advocacy and all that, which I definitely understand that side of it. Now, the Compass side of it is, okay, but the consumer isn't just a buyer. The consumer is also a seller. And let's be honest. I mean, Zillow really is a portal for buyers. So is Redfin. It's not necessarily, I mean, yes, to your point, it's a tool we implemented when we market properties. Yet at the same time, it's not always seller or seller friendly, either Zillow or Redfin. I think the Compass approach really is sellers should have more control over being able to market their properties as they wish. If they want to attempt to go as, keep it in-house within Compass, yet market it publicly through Facebook, through social media, through, door hangers, through all of those things, they should be able to do that. And if at any point in time they decide, you know what, let's go ahead and now enter it into the MLS, that they should not be penalized by having Zillow and Redfin saying, hey, we're not putting these listings up. Now, once again, I think Zillow comes at it like, I believe part of it that this is consumer advocacy, especially for the buyer. I think, Compass, but I also think it's self-serving for their portal. I mean, they want as many listings on there.
Absolutely.
And really the Compass approach is, hey, as a seller, like, who's advocating for the seller? If we decide we want to, have it exclusively on Compass, yet market it out to other agents without going through the MLS, we should be able to do that. And if at some point in time we just determine we want to enter it into MLS, we shouldn't be penalized and taken down, especially now that NAR has come out and allowed this new delayed marketing with the through our MLS system and everything. So, what are your thoughts on that?
My thoughts are, I think it's an ever changing and ever, I don't want to say evolution, but things change, right? And Zillow will adapt, just like this is their initial decision and stance, because obviously if they don't want to lose out on listing data, because that's really how they get buyers to their platform. And then that's how they also then sell it to agents to make more money. So I understand from that perspective how important it is in Zillow's eyes. So on the business side, how important it is to them to make sure all the data is there. On the other side of it, because I read a little bit more about our stance as a company. If one big company, like in this case Compass, takes their listing out of the MLS in this case, right? What if another company then takes their listing off the MLS? Then what's going to happen is now the data that's out there for all the regular buyers is not 100% accurate anymore. It's New York City, for example, they don't have a central MLS. You would actually have to call all these agents to find out all the available houses that are available. So I think one of the fears, I don't operate in fear. Honestly, I'm like, you know what? We're going to sell the house anyways. But the fear in the market for people who are in that realm is, what if the data is not accurate anymore? What if the buyers, the regular buyers out there who don't have access to great agents like you, they're like, how do I get access to the houses? And maybe there's no Compass agent in the area. Maybe, which is hard to believe, but let's just pretend there's no Compass agent in the area. They're like, how are they going to get access to those houses and those properties? I know that was one of the fears. And if it's not just Compass now, if there's another company that then follows suit, and I wouldn't be surprised if that is the case, right? Let's say multiple brokerages decide together that, you know what, we're not going with what Zillow wants, and we're gonna just do our own private exclusives. Now the MLS data is no longer accurate. The Zillow data is no longer accurate, and I think the fear in the marketplace is that, all right, how is that gonna be serving the buyers out there, especially the buyers out there who doesn't have access to agents? And because not every agent's created equal. Let's just put it out there. Not every agent's created equal, right?
John,
it's a little bit too easy to be a realtor.
I'm going to even go as far as to say, and you are nicer than I am a lot, but I actually say on a lot of my videos that 80% of the agents just absolutely suck. And, I agree. And then 10% are really good, and then 10% you have are just excellent. So yes, so you're definitely right about that. So didn't mean to interrupt you, but I just wanted to kind of get back to my 80-20 rule.
But the thing that I like also with kind of like this conversation right here is that the agent who can bring the most value and solve the problem of the clientele is going to be the agent who's going to be super successful in this market. So in a scenario like this, because I truly believe in private exclusives. You and I know, because you've seen how I operate my team and my business. We do coming soon to the maximum potential as possible. We have buyers in waiting. We have houses in waiting. We're all about exclusivity. We're all about making things happen behind the scenes as much as giving maximum exposure to the houses out there. So you and I know that the agent who can solve the problem, because buyers wants houses, and to attract buyers, you have to be the agent or the brokers that has the listings. That's why Zillow is important for Zillow. Zillow's like, I don't want to lose listings, so we have to put our foot down, because that's how they attract buyers.
Right.
And to be a good buyer agent, well, not a good buyer agent, but buyer agents who are successful are the ones who's able to find properties. Right. And so whether it's the ones on the MLS, but you and I know there's a lot of houses that sells off market. Like on our team, we sell three or four homes every single month off market.
Yep.
We just closed one yesterday. Like never hit the market. We had an investor call us immediately, got a full price offer. We sold it. That was what the sellers wanted, right? So the value is in this scenario, as things are changing, the question is like, how are we as agents, as the realtor community, how can we continually bring value and solve people's problems? Buyers, how do we get buyers access to houses, especially the ones that, if in the scenario I'm not at Compass and the home is at Compass, how do I somehow find a solution for that? And for listing agents who needs access to more buyers, how do you give that to your sellers? Because you and I also know the agent who creates the most demand is going to be the agent who gets the highest price and the best terms for the seller.
Right.
So that never changes. Rules can change. Zillow's stance on things can change. Our companies may be on different ends of the spectrum, but at the end of the day, it's the same thing. How can we solve people's problems? And the one who can solve their problems seamlessly is going to be the agents. You said it, the top 10% is going to be the ones who solve the problems.
Yep, 100% agree. So we have a few questions here. So we've got Chris Balto says, so just posting my own house on my social media before the MLS can get it blocked from Zillow. That can't be right, right? Well, Chris, just posting my own house on my social media. So I assume Chris is not an agent.
Yeah,
I assume he's his own. I mean, yeah, I think this is really for brokers who are, once again, basically marketing their property publicly, but off of MLS. I mean, if a seller, if a homeowner themselves is, marketing their property on their own for sale by owner, I don't think that that's really an issue right there.
Can I be the devil's advocate here for a second?
What's that?
Can I be a devil's advocate?
Sure.
What if you market it on social media without the address?
Yeah.
Without a photo.
Yeah. So, and actually, with Compass, we can actually do that. I mean, and, not put a price, not put an address in there. I personally don't do that. I mean, I don't, but yeah, I mean, that's a good question there.
Because Kev, if I put it out there without an address, without an address, without a photo, without a price, or one of those identifiers, you know what's going to happen? People are going to inquire. They're like, "Hey, what is the address? Hey, what is the price?"
Yep.
You're going to get more clicks and you're going to get more inquiries. We're talking about lead gen. We're totally different topic now, but
yeah. And you are the master at that, because I definitely remember back in the day, running Facebook ads, for the, the hot list of the top homes in Gaithersburg under 500,000. And, we have a picture of something that looked like it was about $10 million there. People are like, I want that house. I'm like, well, that house is not for sale.
You're like, that one sold like 18 years ago, but
yeah, that one sold in the Carter administration. So we've got actually a statement here from Richard Saunders. Zillow's position is the agent is more important than the seller. They exist to promote the agent, not the seller. What's your take on that? I don't know that I agree with that. I think that Zillow just is all about getting, selling to agents and getting buyers into their portal. I don't know that they're necessarily pro agent. And as there's not a lot of agents, even those that, are Zillow Premier agents who invest in Zillow. There's still, most of them, I don't know, are huge fans of Zillow. But what is your thought on that? Because I know that you, sir, over the years, you've certainly been involved with Zillow.
Yeah. Right. And I know a lot of Zillow Flex team leaders, and they just say it's like the necessary evil. It's a lead generation platform for them. Right. I look at Zillow on the perspective of the consumers as a tool. Going back to the belief, my core belief is that the agent who can create the most demand, and it's a supply and demand, more demand, better price, better terms. More demand means also getting your property exposed to as many buyers as possible. And Zillow is just a tool, right? So I look at that as like, Zillow is a tool to get more exposure for the property. Zillow's business stance is they attract buyers and then they sell the buyers to the agents, and they look at the agents as like that's how they make money. And so, yeah, they want to make sure they take care of the agents at the same time. But I look at it as a tool to my clients, for my clients.
Mhm. So, I'm going to debate the getting greatest demand always equals getting the greatest price, because I also think there's something to be said for exclusivity,
Yeah.
especially with certain properties and in certain markets. And as well as I do, we're not seeing it as much today. I mean, we're still seeing it some, but not nearly to the level that we were seeing the last 4 or 5 years, especially the early days of the pandemic when interest rates were at 3% or so. I mean, and there was just no inventory out there at all. And when property would come up, I always compared it to like going to the end of a pier with some breadcrumbs, and there's either fish or ducks in the water, and you throw it out there and it just got attacked. Throw a slice of bread out there, it just gets attacked. That's what was happening with houses, for the better part of 4 or 5 years. We still see that some today, but not nearly as much as we were seeing. And I do think that there's something to be said for exclusivity, because, oftentimes you'll have buyers out there who have lost 5, 6, 7 times, who are just like worn out by the market. And then they see a property come up, it doesn't have to be with Compass. This isn't all about Compass, but, they see a property that they have an opportunity for off market that they know is priced aggressively,
Yeah.
And they're just like, you know what? I just want this freaking house, because if this darn thing were to hit the market, even if it was $50,000, $100,000 lower, which is where I really think the value is, chances are I'm going to end up chasing it up with 7 to 10 other buyers, and there's a high percentage that I'm going to chance that I'm going to lose it. So this gives them an opportunity to be able to go in there, oftentimes to be able to go in and buy it in more peace with just, you know what, I'm going to wrap it up, take it, and I'm thrilled. I got an opportunity that not everybody did have. I mean, and I think that worked very well for home sellers. I mean, I still say it works well today. However, in the markets where the inventory was just absolutely depleted, I mean, there were a lot of home sellers that sold their homes for some major league premium prices without even going on the market, because they were paid. It was kind of like going to eBay and, you've got the auction and then there's the buy now price.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? Screw it. Buy now. I want to be done with
right.
this, and that's kind of what, a lot of the exclusive listings were. I mean, what are your thoughts on that? Do you think that it's always the most amount of eyes is going to get the best offer, or do you think that there are times out there where the exclusivity, actually might even get you a home seller a better price than having all these eyes on it?
I'm going to look at it from a different perspective. I can bring value to my buyers with the exclusivity. In fact, one of my offers when I attract buyers to come work with our team, we have a VIP buyer program, and our key offer is like, hey, buyers, we can get you access to off-market homes, and we can give you access to homes before they hit the market, which is your offer on Compass. We have it as a VIP buyer program on our team, right? We attract buyers because of that offer. So I do see the value in exclusivity. I see the value in being able to say, buyers, I can get you access to homes that other people can't see. Mm-hmm. And that does attract more clients and more buyers who's been jaded and brokenhearted and tired and just like, I just keep on losing on houses and I can't outbid $500,000, like people with cash who's paying $200,000 over asking. Yes.
Right.
So I see the value in that sense of like, you know what? I do want to get my buyers to win homes. And yes, exclusivity means less competition for them, means they can also put their best foot forward. And yes, we are more likely to win for our buyers, or at least more easily. If they're willing to put their best foot forward, they're more likely to win. And that is a definitely amazing, powerful value proposition that you can offer to buyers. Now, can I say the same on the exclusivity on the seller side? I can't. I don't. The answer is like, I've never had a situation where, because I can't track it, because we've sell homes off market, but I can't just be like, hey, Kev, but I have no idea what's going to happen if we did put on the market. You know what I mean? But
Right.
was my seller happy selling it off market? Yeah, because we knew exactly what their goal number was. We know exactly what had to happen for them to say at the end of the day, Jon, you checked all the boxes. I'm going to give you that 5-star review and you earned it. We know exactly what has to happen. So as long as we can get that to happen, and if that means off market and they're happy, then we'll suggest that. Does that make sense? So
absolutely.
there's nothing wrong or right about whether we must go exclusive or not exclusive. At the end of the day, it's about how can we give our clients exactly what they want, solve their problems, and earn that 5-star review.
Right. Yep, no doubt. Hey, so I just wanted to let everybody know out there. I see quite a few guys watching out there. Please throw in your questions. You can, take a stance. You can even ask any question. It could be completely off this topic. You might be bored to tears with this topic, but ask any question when it comes to real estate. Jon and I will certainly answer any questions you have. So please throw in your questions there. But anyways, one thing that I wanted to, and you know what, we probably in a little bit, Jon, we might segue unless we get some questions that take us into a different spot. We might segue just to kind of talk a little bit about the changing market. But actually, I did see a question come in. This one's, hi, Dad and Jon. With Zillow, this is from Kristen Grove.
Hey,
hi,
Kristen.
Dad and Jon. With Zillow changing, will people still be able to look up homes that are not on the market? I enjoy looking up properties in different areas to learn about the homes and prices.
I know Zillow still has their Zillow coming soons. I know that's still there. And so when we're talking about homes that are coming on the market, they're not on the market yet. That's still available. I don't know if that's going to change at all. That's what I can talk about. That I don't know. Kevin, what's your thought?
So right now, I mean, once again, I think Compass is the big player that is really battling it out with Zillow right now. And, with our private listings that, we want the ability to be able to market them publicly off of MLS. And I'll get into reasons why in a little bit. But those are the ones that are really right now that are at risk of not being on the Zillow platform. And like Jon said, I think there's so many changes. There are going to be more and more changes to come. Who's going to end up on top? Who's going to be, too early to tell that. But right now, I mean, it's really kind of a high stakes chicken right now between Compass and Zillow. And what I mean by that is, once again, if I, as a Compass agent or as a Compass agent, were to be marketing the property publicly, like Facebook and any type of marketing there, but not have it into the multiple listing service within one day, then it hasn't happened yet, but sometime in May, they're talking about banning those properties. So the question really is for the agents out there, you know what? Are you okay with potentially going on the market in MLS and yet not being on Zillow and Redfin? I mean, and that's a conversation that really, an agent needs to have with their seller. I mean, their seller needs to understand these ramifications and everything. I have to say, I'm not at that point. I'm not that bold in a market, especially that's changing, where I'm going to, and that is unless my seller, to Jon's point earlier, says, you know what, I just want to be private. I don't want any, maybe they have their own situation that they just don't want all their neighbors knowing about. We don't want to go in MLS. If we can get this price, great. If we can't get this price, oh well. Okay, that's a different story. Those properties will never show up on Zillow. But the majority of the properties we're talking about are typically listed with Compass for a short period of time. A lot of times this is while they're getting the home ready for the market. At the same time, it's being marketed through Compass, somewhat aspirationally in many cases. It's these properties, if they start being advertised in, on social media and in other forums, those are the ones they're talking about not having an MLS. Kevin Grolig is not going there at this point. I'm not going to mess around with that. Just like Jon said, I think there's a place for marketing off market. I think there's a place for exclusivity. However, the majority of home sellers who call me, just like Jon said, they want to get their home sold. Most of them want the highest price possible, the quickest sale, the least inconveniences and hassles. And that's what we aim to deliver, is solve problems there. So once again, Can exclusivity be a part of that? Yeah, it can. But ultimately, the majority of my properties, if we're marketing them off market through the Compass portal, 90% of them are going to end up going on the market. And the first day they go on the market, I do not want to see my seller penalized by not being on Zillow and not being on Redfin and some of these other portals. So,
Right.
anyways, we've got a few other questions that come in. Rene Guzman Iglesias, do you know who he is, John?
Yeah, man. He's my rock star agent. He's my partner.
Yeah,
what's up, Rene?
Yeah, he is. Do you see a future where do you see a future where, like most things in America, the consumers will have 2 to 5 top corporate choices to buy or sell a home? I see it becoming a market where whoever has the biggest platform wins. And then he goes on to say more. He says, agent role will be relegated to just a 9 to 5 for the big boys, except for the few agents that carved out major followings and have massive platforms. What are your thoughts?
What are your thoughts? Let's bring it to you. What are your thoughts of that?
Okay. Do you see a future where, like most things in America, the consumer will have 2 to 5 corporate choices? Yeah, I think it's definitely coming to that right now. I mean, you're seeing just, the bigs getting bigger and, the Compasses, the EXPs. I mean, the amount of growth with those two companies is just absolutely amazing. I mean, I'd never heard of either company 10 years ago. And now today, I mean, they're the two biggest players nationwide. So it's definitely already becoming that right now. So I definitely see that. I think that right now, the topic we're discussing is really who's in the battle for the biggest portal, and obviously Compass is taking a swing at that really hard, which, I have to say, I appreciate that being a Compass agent, that we're not just sitting back and letting things happen, which is what I felt like, in the past with other companies where it's just like, okay, you're seeing all this, venture capital coming into the marketplace, trying to replace John, who we are and what we've done for as a livelihood. And, I like seeing companies, and the EXP is definitely there too, who's fighting that. We might come from different corners, but I think ultimately it's pro-consumer and it's pro-agent.
Absolutely. And you see the mergers. You're seeing companies buy companies out. You're seeing that's why the two brokerages, the brokerages who can bring the most value to the equation are the ones who are growing right now.
Right.
And you also see brokerages who are hurting, who are they're not growing. They're actually getting smaller and smaller because they're not adjusting to the market. They're not adjusting to the times. And I don't want to say there will be only like 5 at the end. Who knows how many's going to be there at the end? But I do agree where you are seeing those companies grow. You are seeing the mergers and the purchases. And I think at the end there will be major companies and brokerages who are at the top. Like the 80-20 rule that we talked about on agents, I think applies to the brokerages too.
100%.
Same exact rule. The 80-20, what is it? Like the 20% of the people out there, the agents out there will do 80% of the business. And I truly believe at the end of the day, through all this is what's happening right now, 20% of the brokerages will do 80% of the business.
I remember at the very beginning of this year, I don't know, this probably did not come out from NAR, but I saw a lot of agents posting the statistic on their social media that I think last year, 2024, like 74% of all agents nationwide didn't sell one house.
Yeah, I remember seeing that, something like that.
I mean, I don't know where that statistics came from, but it doesn't really surprise me. What are 1.5 million agents, I think, and 74% of them didn't sell one house. So that should scare the public right there. You definitely want to interview your agent that you're working with, and you want to look at reviews online. You want to be able to, hopefully have somebody give you a great referral there, because, the chances are if you just kind of, go through, randomly and just pick an agent from wherever, chances are you're probably going to get a slug. So now Rene also goes on to say, and I didn't really know that I completely follow this, but he says the agent role will be relegated to just a 9 to 5 for the big boys, except for the few agents that carved out major followings and have massive platforms. So I'm not really sure I understand it. What are your thoughts? Do you?
I'm not sure what that meant.
Tell us some more, Rene. Tell us some more. We'll throw you in there. But anyways, John, I did want to put up here real quick because one of the things that came out very just after the whole Zillow EXP thing, EXP put out a here it is, seller advisory, risks of limited market exposure. Okay, are you familiar with this?
Yes.
Okay. It looks to me, when I first saw this, I mean, now I'm talking kind of inside baseball stuff. It looks like the same stuff that like Zillow, or not Zillow, but Bright put out that we need to have signed for each listing and everything. So I'm just going to kind of go through it real quickly. I mean, the warning is selling a property privately without inclusion in the multiple listing service or broader public marketing channels can significantly limit visibility and reduce buyer competition, which may negatively impact your final sale price and terms. I 100% agree with that. There's no argument there. Talks number one, limited buyer exposure. A large pool of qualified buyers may never learn your property is listed for sale because your property has been given full market exposure. With reduced market exposure comes reduced visibility, and with reduced visibility comes reduced demand for your property. I got no argument there. Financial risk, it just goes on to saying that, all this could cause a financial risk that, as a seller, you may be leaving money on the table selling for less because you didn't expose it to the vast public. Longer time on market, once again, with limited marketing, fewer buyers, that could up the amount of time it takes to sell. And then no public portals. With withholding your property listing from public portals such as Zillow, Realtor.com, Redfin, and Homes.com may reduce its visibility, limit the pool of potential buyers, and negatively affect your chances of achieving optimal sales terms and net proceeds. And then it goes on to say eXp Realty strongly encourages you to consider exposure to the broadest market possible, which includes the MLS service and broader public marketing channels available to all consumers prior to accepting an offer. And so, I mean, there's very little that I disagree with there. Actually, I think it's 100% factually true. At the same time, once again, what I would say is, and one of the raps that, I hear the detractors to Compass saying is that, the only reason you want to do these private exclusives and not go into the multiple listings is because you're trying to get both sides of the deal. You're as we say in real estate, trying to double end the deal, which means not giving other agents from other companies the opportunity, but keeping it all in-house. And I will reply to that in just a moment.
Yeah, I can reply to that too.
Okay, yeah.
You can reply to that.
Yeah, the other, and John, you do more of this off market, just on your own within your own team. It's not necessarily within EXP. I mean, Compass, it's within the Compass portal, but you're doing your own just through your buyer in waiting network and everything.
Yeah.
So you do your own version. It's similar, but it's your own versus Compass. The other thing that we hear a lot about is that, once again, you're going to sell it for much less if you're not, including it to the broader marketplace. And just like this, the seller advisory states. And that's where, once again, I go back to, once again, we're working for our client. It's in our client's best interest. We know when we go in there what their hot buttons are, where their pain points are, because we talk to them and and we counsel them on a plan of action that kind of really is in line with what's important to them. And so here's what I would say when it comes to double ending deals. First of all, to be quite honest with you, like I would, as an agent, I would much rather have another agent bring the buyer to the property than have it be myself, even if that means, I'm only getting half of the compensation maybe versus the full amount of compensation. And just simply because it's a real tightrope there to be able to navigate and come out of that transaction with not just one person just really pissed off at you, but both sides pissed off.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, it's like sometimes it's like if you were to show up at court, and you're driving there and you meet your attorney outside, you go walk in, and then you see that the defendant on the other side's like calls him over, and that dude's also representing him. I mean, so it's really hard to be able to effectively manage working with both a buyer and seller on the same transaction. So first of all, I would much rather have somebody else bring the buyer in, whether that's another Compass agent or whether that's an EXP agent. And once again, so that as far as double ending deals, I mean, this has nothing to do with that. Okay. As far as, limited exposure, no doubt, but where the pitch that I'm making with my clients when I'm going out there is I'm saying something like this. Well, first of all, let's start with, this, John. I mean, there's virtually, how many houses do you go into? What percentage of houses do you go into? And you meet with the sellers and you're like, yeah, you don't have to do anything. We're ready to go on the market today. What percentage?
10%.
I think it's less than that.
5%.
But yeah,
it's like, I'm smiling because I'm like, man, you're painting this dream scenario of you walk in, they're on the market tomorrow and they're sold in 2 days because the house is ready to go. But in reality, the reality is like, no, we come in from the very first stage of getting the house ready, making sure they put the right paint color, making sure the house is furnished the right way, the furnitures are being moved around, decluttering. We're really there from like the whole process from beginning to end. And dude, out of like 100 homes, maybe like 2 of them called me and they're like, hey, I'm ready to go. And the house is actually ready to go.
Yeah, 100%. And so my point is, the pitch that I make for our exclusives is that I'll go to a house and I will see that in most cases, decluttering needs to take place. Most likely painting needs to take place. So maybe some replacement of fixtures, landscaping, flooring, things like that. The point is, this stuff takes time. It doesn't happen overnight. In many cases, it's, could be, if it's a vacant house, maybe it can get turned around super quick. Maybe in 2 weeks, we can turn this around. On an occupied house, it might take 30 days or so because we're working around people and pets and all those things. But the pitch that I make is, we already know what kind of price that they want. Let's say it's a house that's $750. It's a good solid $750 home. That's the property. That's the value. That might be the price that we think that we would go into the MLS on. The pitch I might make is, hey guys, let me tell you a little bit about how we're different here, how I'm different. Okay. Most agents are going to come here and they're going to tell you a lot of the same things I told you about the things you're going to need to get done. Some of them are completely clueless and won't tell you anything, but some of them that are just good agents will tell you, hey, these are some of the things that we suggest that you do to enhance the value and to be photo ready and market ready. Now, here's some names of people we have. Go on out and call them, get the quotes, get the work done. Call me when you're ready. I'll come out, bang a sign into the ground, snap a few photos, and we'll put you on the market. The approach we take here is that, first of all, we can handle, we have a suite of vendors and contractors who we will go ahead and we'll get them out to your house. We're going to get you great prices, great quotes and everything. The only thing you need to do is say yes to it. By the way, our company has I'm definitely getting into a Compassy thing here. By the way, our company has a program called Compass Concierge where we will actually front load all of the upfront capital to get these things done. You don't need to come out of pocket, no payments, no interest, no nothing. Okay. And in the meantime, what we can do is maybe we can price it somewhat aspirationally and put it on the Compass portal. How would 800 sound? I mean, if you can get 800,000 or somewhere close to that, maybe even before the work starts or without having to go on the market, without signs and lock boxes and shoe covers. I hate freaking shoe covers. Open houses and all the hoopla that everybody else needs to go through. If we could get that for you, would you consider that a win? And they're like, hell yeah, that's a win. We love that idea. And you know what, guys? And if it doesn't sell, the worst that can happen is we get feedback. We'll get feedback as to, people who've seen it, what do they think about the property? If we've got nobody who's looked at it, it probably says something about the price right there. And if we have to go on the market, there's no trace that we've ever done any of this. So the first day on the market is day 1. It's not going to be day 22 because we spent 3 weeks, marketing it privately off of MLS. So, that's the pitch I make to sellers. I think a lot of the detractors will say, oh, you're just pricing it low to sell it in-house. No, I mean, I next to never price these properties and private exclusive at the same price that we're going to the MLS. It's like, let's put it out there. Let's see if there's any sharks in the water. There's 30-foot great white who's just going to come and freaking take that thing and buy it. without us going through all the aggravation for the seller going on the market. If we don't sell it, we go to the market, with a much better product, and typically, it's going to be market ready. So,
yeah, we that was a mouthful.
Oh my God.
So on our team, we do something very similar. We don't have a Compass Concierge. We also have a program where our clients can prepare the house and they pay at closing. So it's very similar concierge, no cost, no nothing. Our team will take care of the repairs when they go on the market. It's sold, they sell out of the proceeds of the sale. I just got a message from my team, awesome people. I give them a heads up. I'm like, hey, you all need to be listening and like texting me. And I just got this thing that says price history is not displayed in the coming soon status anymore on Bright. And that's powerful. That's powerful. Here's why, because a lot of sellers, when they are on coming soon, they don't really know what price they want to go on yet. In fact, we tell our sellers this. We said, Mr. and Mrs. Homeowner, I'm not going to tell you what price you should be on the market at, because it is a factor of who's on the market when you're on the market. So I'm not going to tell you today you should be at X when you're not on the market for 2 weeks or a month or 2 months. That would be doing a disservice to you, right? So the coming soon process, we go on the market, we're on the coming soon. They can choose what I said. If you want to try $800,000, let's do $800,000. Let's see how the market responds in the coming soon period and see if anybody inquires at $800,000, because it gives us an idea how the market responds at, like, what was the word that you used about the price when you're trying a higher price? Yes. So we do that. Now, we also look on Zillow and we look at the data and see how many inquiries, how many people saved the listings. We see, because we have all the data behind the scenes. We know how many views, how many saves, how many inquiries we've had during the coming soon period at that dream price, right? And then we suggest back to the sellers when we are about 2, 3 days, 5 days out before going on the market. We look at who's on the market at that time, because we want to make sure we price them according to who's on the market. At the same time, we also have the data and be like, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Homeowner, here's the data in the last 30 days at that I don't want to say ridiculously priced, at that price where it's a little bit higher than, we know what the market value is. We tried that price, we tried the market, and here's what the market says. It says that you're overpriced, or it might say, you know what? We're getting, actually, I'm surprised. We're getting people actually inquiring and saving, and people are calling me, and we have a line of buyers ready to go at that dream price. So let's stay at that dream price. Let's go on the market. We've tested the market. The market says it's okay. We're going active tomorrow, and that's going to be your price. And it could be like, you know what? We tested the market at $850,000, and the market says you're too high. We're not getting the inquiries. We're getting the eyeballs, but nobody's saving your listing. Nobody's inquiring. Nobody's asking questions. It's just silence out there. That tells me that Mr. and Mrs. Homeowner, we tried your price. Let's make an adjustment. It wouldn't be fair to you if I don't tell you that. Let's adjust the price down to where I think it needs to be. So we use Zillow as a tool. It gives us visibility. We also there are so many different tools out there that we use to show us how the market's responding during that coming soon period. Because the coming soon period now on Bright, they also took away, because back in the day, I don't know when back in the day was, but it used to be like 21 days, right? I don't remember when they changed the rule, but it used to be 21 days on coming soon before it goes active. Now there's no more limits. Kevin, you're on mute.
There we go. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Had a little malfunction there. So I guess the question I have was, are you talking about testing the market just on Zillow coming soon? So you're putting it out just on Zillow itself as a coming soon? Is that what you're talking about?
On Bright and on Zillow as a coming soon.
Okay. But,
yeah.
So what are your thoughts about like testing price with Bright? I mean, would you put it in there at that? I don't want to say ridiculous price, that dream price. I mean, or because that kind of, looks kind of silly if you're putting it out there as a coming soon and then bringing it down, don't you think? I mean,
well, on the Bright, I have a screenshot here from Bright. It says price history is not displayed in the coming soon status. So, and if you put at $900,000, $1 million, and you and I know the house is worth 850,000, and your seller's like, Kevin, I just want you to try it out and see if anybody who says I want the house, and you're like, all right, man, let's put it for $1 million, 1.1. Let's just try it. Let's see how crazy it is. And it doesn't. Nobody like does anything with it, and we adjust the price according to what I have here on Bright. The price history is not on display anymore.
Wow. But I mean, but if somebody's watching it, though, I mean, they would. But if somebody's watching it, they would know if you drop the price. But you're saying just that, you know, if you were to reduce the price prior to going active, it wouldn't show that you were at a higher price during the coming soon period.
Exactly.
Oh, what?
And then if let's say that I was watching, let's say it's your listing and I was watching the whole time. I'm like, oh, well, I can't bring my buyer in just yet because by law, I'm not, you know, the rule is I can't bring the buyer. You can't show the house while it's in coming soon. Great.
Right.
And I'm watching it 1.1. And then you go active, it's like 850. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to call you. Dude, what happened? And then you and I have a conversation, more likely to get a deal together. Because you'll be like, all right, here's what's going to happen. Get me this number. I can get you the deal. It becomes a conversation. The deals happen in the conversations all the time.
Right, right. Absolutely. Absolutely. So, you know what? Why don't we kind of shift? First of all, that's great information. And I got to look that up because I was not aware of that. I was always, because typically, you know, I'm usually doing we might market it exclusively through Compass for a few weeks while we're getting it ready. I typically will put it out on Bright for as a coming soon for usually like 5 to 7 days. I always explain to my clients that this is kind of like a little bit like a movie trailer where, you know, we're letting you know that it's about to hit the theaters, but if you go to the theater today, it's not there. So just to kind of build anticipation and everything. But I've always been extremely nervous about putting it out there on Bright coming soon and then reducing it or raising it, you know, before it goes active, I guess. But to your point, I mean, somebody who's watching it will know, but it's not necessarily, you know, anybody that were to come across it later is not going to see that was the case.
Yeah. The data is not there.
Okay. All right. So why don't we just kind of pivot for a little bit? We're kind of winding down. What are you seeing in the marketplace right now here in the DMV? And you have agents that are licensed in DC, Maryland, and Virginia. What are you seeing out there? You know, what is your counsel today for buyers? And what is your counsel today for sellers?
You know what, if for buyers, and I tell my agents the same thing, I said, if it's a buyer who's out there and they're like, you know what, I'm dragging my feet, I kind of want to wait to see what happens. Rates today, it's lower than what it was last year. It's way lower than what it was 2 years ago. It is the right time to buy because there's a lot of uncertainty in the marketplace. And you and I we can agree on that. There is some uncertainty always. And there's a lot of buyers that are still dragging their feet. We have some buyers like, you know what, we want to wait and see what happens. We tell those buyers, hey, this is the right time to do it. Because if all the buyers decide that all of a sudden, like, you know what, there's a lot of certainty in the market and everybody floods the market. And it goes back to what it was in 2020, 2021, where you compete with 20 other buyers, you're going to get priced out again. So I tell my buyers, this is the time to buy. Sellers, I tell the sellers, you know what, Mr. and Mrs. Homeowner, the time for you to dream crazy dreams is not now. Now is you have to be realistic. You need my advice. You need Kevin's advice on how to prep your house and how to really price your house. This is not the time to go crazy and like, I want $2 million for a home that's worth 1.5 and get 20 showings and like an offer immediately. The market's not that. Now, is the market cold? No, the market's not cold.
Right.
But the market is actually, it's shifting to a realistic market where if you prep the house properly and you price it right and you have access to buyers, the home will sell. But you and I also are seeing homes that are not selling, right? You and I are starting to see homes expiring. Homes now, instead of selling in 1 weekend, it takes 3 weeks. Some homes takes 4 weeks. So you're starting to see the days on the market is starting to increase. So my advice to all those sellers is, well, let's sit down and let's make sure we prep the house properly and price the house properly. And that also includes the sellers that we sat down with 6 months ago. Because you and I also know the sellers 6 months ago, 8 months ago, who's been prepping the house for the last 8 months, the market's different.
Right.
So now they're coming on the market. I'm like, all right, we need to sit down. I need to tell you what the market is right now because it's not what it was 8 months ago or 10 months ago or a year ago when we first had this consultation, right? In fact, I told my agents, all my agents, I said, hey, all those listings out there, they're either going to expire or there's going to be a price reduction, right? If it's our listing, make sure it's price reduced, right? Learning the price reduction again. We've been in the market for 100 years. Between the two of us, we've been here for so long. We remember what price reductions were. But there's a lot of realtors on the market today. They've never had the experience of having the conversation and saying, Mr. and Mrs. Homeowner, let's go over the data. We've been on the market now for 30 days. This is how many showings you've had. It's time to reduce the price. A lot of agents don't have that in their repertoire because they've never had that scenario because they've only been licensed for a few years.
Right. Yep. No, 100% agree. And, it's interesting. I heard somebody in my office the other day say this term, and I thought it was really great. I'm actually, when you're talking to sellers, I mean, right now it's kind of walking that with especially home sellers, it's walking that tightrope. If you come in there and you're just like, oh, you're never going to get this, and the market's crashing, which it's not, but if you come in there too hard and too hot, without any type of, without any type of hope or positivity, I mean, they're going to have you come across as extremely negative. At the same time, if you're coming in there like you just said, like, hey, this is not the time to get that dream price. I mean, that may have been last year, but you have to kind of walk that tightrope with being somewhat positive, and at the same time keeping it real in a changing market. Because what I find is that the public tends to be 6 to 9 months behind where the market really is at any point in time. And now that we're shifting, they're having a hard time really understanding that. And I think agents are too, when you think about how the market shifted, during the pandemic, it took everybody a while to be like, oh, wow, okay, this is what's going on. And you weren't sure how strong the current was and how fast you needed to paddle. And then after a while, you're like, holy crap, I got to paddle harder to stay in this, and so right now, that's kind of where we are. I think that pendulum is shifting. It's coming more into balance. But getting back to what I was saying, the agent said he tells his sellers, he's like, you know what? It definitely is a seller's market for 5 days.
For 5 days.
I think that's so true. 5 days. If you're not sold 5 to 7 days, you've now turned it into a balanced market. And if you're out in the market for 3 weeks, 30 days or longer, especially without any type of price adjustment, you've now turned it into a buyer's market. I think that is so freaking true. It's a seller's market for 5 days. That first weekend goes by and you've got no offers. That some of that swagger you had coming out of the blocks, I mean, it's starting to get a little stale. So, so I would agree. I would say to home sellers, this is not the time to be cute. This is not the time to hold back on things. You actually have to compete again. You didn't have to freaking compete for 4 years. I mean, you threw it out there and it's like, it was like, it got treated like it was gold, and it wasn't, and now it's getting treated like it really is, not through rose-colored glasses. So you got to get out there, compete. Price is important. Condition is important. Staging is important, and having the right agent is important.
And a real estate agent's important again. Being the right listing agent, the agent who knows what the heck they're doing, is the value again. Because when the market is ridiculously hot, in some cases in their mind, they don't need us. They're like, we'll just put it out there. We're going to get a call immediately. Now in our market, it really amplifies the importance of having that experienced agent who knows how to sell houses and attract buyers.
And also, what I'm finding right now is just, being able to network and keep in touch with some of these agents, having a good relationship, having, I always say, like, a great agent can be a magnet for your property. A bad agent's like a freaking scarecrow. So, you need to have that, right now I'm having more conversations with other agents right now who are showing the properties, just kind of keeping them in the loop, without coming across as being desperate, because I really don't have any seller situations that are desperate, but, anxiety comes in when you're on the market now for more than 10 days, 2 weeks. And so, it's just keeping good channels of communication open, as you say, having conversations and things like that. And then lastly, what are you telling your agents to tell buyers out there? I mean, are you having them go back and start to reach back out to some of those who may have, putting themselves on the sideline because they've been, like a whooped puppy. They've been just, battered around so much that they just can't take it anymore. Like, those are the ones to reach out to. So what are you telling your agents, and what are you saying out there to home buyers?
I tell our agents all the time, the money's in the follow-up. An agent may come across you day one, look out there, realize they're not ready. They might drag their feet for 3, 4, 5, 6 months. It's the agent that keeps on following up that wins. And you know what? It's not that first follow-up. It's not the second follow-up. There's a lot of agents who'll pick up the phone twice, get 2 no's, and they're like, this lead's bad. This buyer's bad. They'll never buy. 30 days later, the buyer's ratified with another agent, right? It's the agent who keeps on calling, not calling, just saying, hey, I'm checking in on you, because like that gets weird after a while, but checking in with value. Like, hey, Kevin, I was just on the phone with another agent, another client of mine, and you came to mind because that client of mine was asking about how the market is. So I was just wondering, Kevin, what question do you have about the real estate market that maybe I can answer for you today? Right. Is it about the real estate market? Is it about the rate? Is it about what your home can sell for? And then just having conversations like normal human beings. You know what I like about you? I'm going to give you a shout out, by the way, because you and I used to have office next to each other. I'll give you a 10-second shout out. You're always on the phone checking in on people. That's why you're so good at what you do. You always call people, you check in, and you're just natural. Like, hey, it's Kevin. How's everything?
Yeah. I mean, that's been the key, really, is just staying in touch with people, and, one of my favorite lines, especially because we all have those people that we haven't talked to for quite some time. And you look at the name and you're like, oh God, man, I haven't talked to this person in 12 years. Like, what the heck do I say? And, my favorite line out there is, you know what? I got to be honest with you. I'll say who it is and everything. Like, hey, John, it's Kevin. And they're like, oh my God, how you doing? I'm like, dude, I'm doing well, man. But I got to be honest, man, you've been on my chicken list. And they're like, chicken list? What's that? I'm like, I've been chicken to call you. And they're like, dude, you're so freaking stupid.
Dude, that is such a good, that's such a good line.
And the reason it's a good line is because everybody has a chicken list. We all have it.
Yeah, I get a chicken list.
Oh God, man, I cannot call that person today. But anyways, yeah, I mean, I would just say when it comes to buyers today, absolutely stay in touch with them. The interesting thing is, even though they may have taken themselves kind of off the market, they're still looking at stuff. Today with all the sophisticated platforms, the Zillows, the Redfins, the Compasses, every platform that's out there, I mean, they're still watching this stuff, and it only takes one house to turn somebody who's been kind of like, kind of Dullsville, taking themselves off the market, to all of a sudden be red hot super quick. And so, you just want to make sure that you're there, you kind of meet them where they are and everything. And, once again, if you have a search set up for them, they're usually not canceling it. They're still watching it and everything. And, it's good for you to kind of keep an eye on that as well. So, but I think right now, what I'm seeing is home inspections are back,
Right.
Appraisal contingencies are back, and so it's a really good opportunity for buyers in most cases. Now, some cases we're still seeing, in spotty cases, we're still seeing multiple offers on like, some areas, some price points, some school districts, maybe, and of course, the homes that are well priced in good shape are always going to get that type of love and attention. They did in 2008, for God's sakes, yeah. But, by and large, this is a good opportunity for buyers to be able to buy a home a right and smart way without having a gun pointed at their head to, basically waive every, normal contingency and every normal safeguard. They can get it and go in there and be able to buy the right way. Hey, maybe get some closing costs out, maybe be able to negotiate some down on the
And
price.
we're seeing that now. We're seeing closing cost assistance coming back from sellers, seller concessions. We're seeing that here, so it's a good market to buy.
Yeah, no, definitely is. So, and we're seeing inventory up. So choices are, once again, sellers, you got to compete now. Didn't have to compete for the longest time. So you do today, and buyers, you got more choice. So anyways, John, anything more you got to say? We're kind of wrapping things up right now.
Man, this is such a pleasure being here with you, man. I appreciate the invite, and I appreciate you trusting me to make some comments and debate with you and talk with you and your audience today. I appreciate you being having me here.
Absolutely. Well, you know what? We hopefully we'll do it again. I do it every Tuesday night. You're not going to. Don't worry, I'm not going to hit you up every week to do it. But maybe in another few months we get the band back together because God knows
Yeah,
there'll be another topic to discuss that's like hot out there on the market right now. So
let's do it.
But anyways, well, thank you. And Jon, if anybody needs to, I always like to have this platform. It's not just about me. I like, being able to promote my guests as well. So, how do we reach you, Jon? How does somebody reach you if they want to get in touch with you, whether it's real estate, coaching, whatever that might be?
For real estate and for coaching, it's jonlahey.com. If you are a consumer and you're like, I want to sell, I want to buy, my website is johnsellsdmv.com. That will get you to my consumer-facing website. But if you just want to chat with me, get to know me on a personal level, I'm always available for a shot. Or go to foodie realtor on Instagram.
Did you mean like a shot of alcohol? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
I wasn't sure what you meant by that. I mean, I kind of, yeah. Anyways, well, hey, Jon, thanks for joining me. And just to the rest of you guys out there, I want to thank everybody for your questions. I want to thank you guys for joining in tonight. And also want to invite you, if you haven't done so already, to go ahead and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Would love to have you do that. And a few little promotions here. So if you are a buyer or potential seller, homeowner that's outside of the DMV and you need a great real estate agent, once again, that's one of the best things you can do is find a great real estate agent. And as Jon and I agreed upon, 80% of the real estate agents out there really suck. And then another 10% are pretty good. And then you have 10% who are exceptional. And I network with some of the top agents throughout the country, that top 10% in all sorts of areas. So the chances are I have somebody really good I could refer to you in your area. So if that's you, you're looking for a real estate referral, go ahead and scan the QR code that says referral. Go ahead and click in your information. I'll give you a call. Don't worry, I won't stalk you. We'll talk a little bit about what's important to you so we can help you find that agent out there for you. And if you want to talk to me directly about anything having to do with real estate, buying, selling, investing, rentals for that matter, go ahead and scan the Calendly link. We can go ahead and set up a 15 up to a 30-minute appointment via Google Meet, and would love to talk to you specifically about your plans. But anyways, everybody, hey, have a great Tuesday night. Thanks for joining in, and we will see you next week.